It is late August 2018, and what does that mean? It's the 6th anniversary of Guild Wars 2. And with the 6th anniversary, the devs released a lot of stuff. A fairly large patch to balance and some new features was released in-game, as well as some press promotional material media stuff that came from Gamescom and just directly from the devs because of the anniversary, talking about, even in little, upcoming stuff. So on this video, I want to talk about a very specific couple of news bombs that really we can get a lot of discussion out of, and they are in the title. One of them is the announcement of the Sun's Refuge, a new take on personal story home instances, it seems, or if you're a World of Warcraft player, I guess strongholds, right? They're called strongholds, aren't they? And the other one is to do with upcoming content in general and the announcement of Season 4 to Season 5 Direct. So let's jump in. First, there were some ancillary things. The devs released this infographic on their website. I love these. A couple of years, I think they haven't done it, and I've always been dismayed when we're in that situation. But essentially, some broad-scale stats about the game and what the populations of the game have done, with a particular focus on post-Path of Fire, the most recent expansion pack. Now, I won't read it all out. You guys can pause the video if you'd like to see. But two of the more interesting stats to me are definitely the most deadly creature, which is the Earth Djinn from POF. Apparently, 8 out of 10 people who get downed by it die. At least I think that's how I'm interpreting this. And that's in a game and a world post-Signet of Agony's introduction. And the least deadly is the Bog Scale, which is a very flimsy, crappy little Corteria creature with long wind-ups on its animations. It dies on average 56,862 times before it gets a kill on a person, a KD ratio of 0.000017. The other really cool thing, actually, I think, is their sum up of how much new music has come to the game across Living Worlds since release. The game client doubled in size, and if you look at the music, they're saying it's over 3 hours 45 minutes of running music, over 120 new tracks. I'm sure some of those tracks are just going to be very slight variations on one another, but still, that's enough for a really convincing new soundtrack, purely Living World oriented, right? The point is, though, Living World's going to keep coming, so where do you draw the line in the sand? So that's what they released on the website. There were also gifts offered to players in-game. This franchise has a long-running tradition of, if you have a character continuously live and available for a number of years, each time the character hits a new birthday, they give you gifts. And because many of us are nerds who created characters right when the game first came out, that means we're all getting our 6th birthday gifts in Guild Wars 2, and they really upped the ante this year. Something I didn't expect, because if you recall, a couple of years ago, they introduced the idea of these racial city-based backpacks, which would take us 5 years to go all the way through before then people potentially are looking for more rewards. Well, they're not waiting that long. This year, you get a title, you get the backpack, you get that new weapon set, and you get a choice of an entire armor set. Not an outfit, not something they're selling on the gem store, a bit like we saw with a recent Halloween release. It's real, normal, proper armor within Guild Wars 2 you can mix and match and do your fashion wars with. One for heavy, one for medium, one for light. And they're really not too bad. I mostly have only looked at them with very gaudy dyes on them. But one example of a little bit of quality is the heavy actually has a visor that I believe has 2 states. It can actually come down in front of your face or not. At least that's what I've been hearing on the grapevine. Really kind of nice. I have to say, it doesn't mean too much to me to get a random armor set thrown at me. I would have thought I'd feel more rewarded and happy about this as a 6-year gift. But I guess I've got enough characters with looks that I'm alright with already, that it kind of wins some of the enthusiasm. You know what I would have been really happy with? And that's if they had taken these 3 armor sets and they'd actually become high-end AP rewards, which feel a bit starved in recent years. Though that Hellfire Infusion was mined during the Festival of the Four Winds. So we've got that. Then they did other things. There's new Black Lion stuff, and they gave people a free customer appreciation gift, which is 2 Black Lion keys, 2 chests, I think it was, and you get a free toy. Generally, they're just, you know, doing a big celebration. Moving back outside of the game and towards the discussion on the video's title, the main thing that happened was a video released from the devs talking about supporting the game for 6 years and generally a kind of fluffy promotional release. It focused largely on Living World as well as its content. It wasn't really talking about expansions. It seemed to be putting forward the idea that Guild Wars is defined by Living World development more than boxes, though that's just my interpretation there. The video was released kind of weirdly as well. It was available on Reddit and everyone was discussing it while the damn thing was still unlisted and hadn't been linked to by any official forum post from the devs. But hey, there you go. The internet works in mysterious ways sometimes. The video itself is pretty long, and while I normally do analyses of these kinds of things and we run our way through them, there's really not much reason to. It's a very long video, first of all, and also nearly all of the footage, if not all of the footage, is from old events. Stuff you might not have seen for ages, like the Tower of Nightmares, old Season 1 stuff, and it's edited together really well, flows really nice, gives a great impression of the game, but it's not like there's much for us to pick at. More it's about the commentary that was available within the video, namely this section here first.
And add new feature content in the coming months. We've got another raid, a new fractal, and one of my favorite features of the season, Sun's Refuge. It's a personal character instance in a familiar and historic location that goes all the way back to the original Guild Wars. You'll be able to rebuild the settlement with opportunities to unlock NPCs, collections, and rewards.
And all of this without a monthly subscription fee.
So, there you have it. That's basically the new stuff. You can watch it playing very slowly in the background for the entire video. We're talking about Sun's Refuge, a new feature upcoming very fast. This season, it seems. Let's go over exactly how that was described in the script. A personal character instance in a familiar and historic location that goes all the way back to the original Guild Wars. You'll be able to rebuild the settlement with opportunities to unlock NPCs, collections, and rewards. Now, big fans of the franchise will immediately recognize what's going on here. Basically, this is a re-implementation of a location during the Guild Wars 1 Nightfall campaign known as the Sunspear Sanctuary. In the story of that game, you go to war with an enemy nation and your siege is broken. Your people are spread and scattered throughout the land, and you need to create a hub and a base to survive and reforge your strength. That base is the Sunspear Sanctuary. It's a cave system behind some remote villages that once upon a time was a temple to the god Melandru. You go back in, it's kind of nasty there, and in Guild Wars 1, as you complete progress in the game, you get to see it build up before your eyes. You start recruiting more forces to your cause, and it's a place where you get lots of quests and continuously return to for that area of the campaign. Guild Wars 1, if you remember, was a heavily instanced game that could quite easily update its explorable areas in accordance with story progression. That was something they really took to the next level in Nightfall with the Sunspear Sanctuary. As you did secondary quests, you would unlock new merchants of different varieties that could help you out. Practically speaking, you didn't really care that much about those services because you could get them anywhere else, but it was a nice idea they were going for a decade ago, and now you see that they're looking at it again in Guild Wars 2. Why this is kind of special in Guild Wars 2 though is that it's not a heavily instanced game as the original was, so it takes more effort to put it off in this more persistent environment. A fact you can easily see the developers wrestling with back in 2012 and the release of the original game with our home instance feature. Think about it, guys. The home instance basically is the Nightfall Sunspear Sanctuary reborn into a fully fledged MMO. The idea being, as you completed quests in your personal story, NPCs and stuff would change back home to reflect that. But as we all know, the home instance didn't do that well. It was limited in a lot of ways. It didn't get the time it needed. It's essentially been repurposed into a different feature now, that being of node gathering, and we don't see much momentum with it. I think the devs understood it wasn't really doing its job back in 2012 as well, which is why you see stuff like the Vigil headquarters serving as another mini instance for you, and the other orders too. Even Fort Trinity's Care of All is another smaller attempt at having a mini instance nearby worthwhile story that should update based on NPCs and whatnot. But at the end of the day, this stuff didn't have the time it needed. A fact that was actually repeated by Lindsay Murdoch, one of the developers developers herself on the big anniversary live stream just a couple of days ago, which for what it's worth was very invigorating and cool too, went on for many hours. So, they kind of failed in 2012, now we're back in the region of Ilona, and it seems they are remembering the Sunspear Sanctuary and looking to give us a good Guild Wars 2 version of it, calling it the Sun's Refuge. I think this could be really useful, because if we are going to be lingering with a lot more Ilonan-oriented story for a while now, which we'll discuss in the video very soon, it makes sense to have a new kind of home instance that really does do the story progression that we'll be zigzagging in and out of a lot. You'll notice in the background you've been looking at these webs here, lots of webs, and webs weren't a part of the Refuge before in the original game. Well, I think it's pretty obvious what's going on. They're going to be using Guildhall tech from Heart of Thorns to not just change and shuffle NPCs and dialogue around, but visually change the area too. I will bet my bottom dollar that once we do a few quests and sort some stuff out, we can take those cobwebs off the walls. We can start properly building up visually. Will they combine even more explicit decoration-oriented features here? That's an interesting thought, especially in the face of the amount of people asking for a proper player housing system. I have a feeling that if that was the true big main idea, to offer something for people who want player housing and solo-oriented Guildhall progression style stuff, they would have talked about it already. But you never know. A big theme of what they've been talking about at Gamescom and elsewhere in this very video is the idea that Living World can do anything expansions can. Specifically, we have an interview with the game director mentioning how the roller beetle mount was added and it didn't take an expansion to do it. So, could we get a good, fully fledged player housing kind of system without having to wait on an expansion? Is that coming super soon? I guess it depends how cynical we are. We'll see. You guys know I've really enjoyed the Guildhall-oriented stuff, and I love the way we could build those buildings up. The thought that they'll take that tech from Heart of Thorns, apply what they learned there to a more solo, story-oriented thing right here in Season 4, that's pretty fantastic. There's not too much more to say about Sun's Refuge just yet. I assume the devs will release a lot more information when the release gets a bit closer. Though I will add, this could be a great opportunity to give us that home instance library we've been looking for. And it collects like all the Ilonan lore books and things. And then maybe in future expansions we get new locations that have those oriented books. And I guess what this implicitly reveals is that episode 3, with Corner as we know it so far, is not our only look at Corner, guys. The Sunspear Sanctuary was in Corner again, just a slightly different region. So those of us who wanted a lot more region lore and a better release for Corner, looks like there will be one coming, which is great. Moving on, there was another fact revealed in this video, kind of sneakily, but more expressly stated elsewhere since its launch, and it's really important, probably the much bigger topic than Sun's Refuge. Let's see if you can detect it. It's right here.
In Guild Wars 2. You can expect more great things from us as we move directly from Season 4 into Season 5.
This means more engaging stories that expand the world of Tyria.
Did you hear that, guys? They are going to be doing Season 5 directly after Season 4. And no, that's not a wonky, weird interpretation. The devs have, since this video, flat out confirmed it. Now, why is this important? Well, because it defies our expectations in general of where we thought the game would be going. So we had the Heart of Thorns expansion, one season, and then the Path of Fire expansion. I think most of us were reasonably expecting Season 4 and then another expansion afterwards. About a 2-year cycle. It could have been that Season 4 had slightly more episodes or slightly less episodes than Season 3 before it, but that seemed to be the idea, that we would leapfrog through season, boxed expansion, season, boxed expansion. And it's not what's happening. Now, if you're an ultra-casual Guild Wars 2 enthusiast, you might think this is good. Oh, 2 seasons between expansions? That means even more content, right? Well, no, the reality is that a lot of us enjoy the game and still have a perspective for the game that the biggest, best stuff is when expansions drop. And what this really means is the next expansion, whatever it is, whether it's a Norn-oriented, a Char-oriented, going back to Cantha, whatever you're excited about, it might not be next year at all. It could be 2 years or even 3 years away based on how the devs pad this out. You can very much interpret this, and this is the main worry, that they're just buying themselves time to spend a lot longer on the next X-Pack, and that Living World on its own for that long duration might not be enough to keep you excited about Guild Wars. And that sentiment is a pretty worrying and pervasive one. So there are two sides to it. Certainly some of you will be thinking about value for money, and if you are someone who keeps the game installed and just logs in once every new release, it is good value for money. You were asked for 30 quid for POF, and now you're basically, as long as you're doing that quick login, getting 3 years, probably, maybe 4, worth of free substantial releases and updates where you're not spending another penny on the product, and that's a pretty big upside. Another upside that is more on my mind is the amount of content and experiences I want to have in the Alolan region of the world before moving on. So let's rewind the clock to just before this reveal here with this video. We were assuming there were going to be 6 to 7, maybe 8, depending on what you know about the game and your impressions, episodes before another expansion, right? So that would be just 3 to 5 more releases for Path of Fire story, Kralkatorrik-oriented stuff around this region of the world, before we move on, probably for good. That would also mean just 3 to 5 new maps for this area of the world. But how many areas of the world exactly is it I want to go to in Alola and POF? Does it fit into just 3? Certainly not, right? Like, let's actually do the list. I want to go to the map south of Ebonhawk. I want to see that tunnel. I want to see how that connects to the north of Path of Fire. It would be bonkers for me to see that they do a Path of Fire expansion set in the Crystal Desert, and the main gate to the Crystal Desert never actually becomes available as a point of transport. I want to see, of course, the Sunspear Sanctuary. Now we know it will be coming, Sun's Refuge, and the adjoining areas of Corner there, which we saw and were the central hub for the original game. Not the same as the Domain of Connor we got in the most recent release. That's 2 maps, but that still doesn't cover other Corner territory. What about the Chantry of Secrets and the areas up towards there? There's certainly a lot of fertile ground there. That's where we thought we'd be going a long time ago when POF came out and we were dealing with the Griffin stuff, no? Well, there you go. You've hit your budget of 3 maps. Let's say that there were 5 more coming before another expansion. Well, I want to go to the Isna Isles on Istan. That's the coolest area of Istan, and we haven't seen it yet. Would they be able to fit the Latenda Bog into that too? Possibly. What about Farina? I know we got to go to Farina in one personal story instance, but that's a substantial area of that region. Do we not get to go there? What about the more distant areas like Dashka and Dazlana? Yes, we had one of the islands that was very Inquest heavy, but there's still so much fertile ground. We're way over budget already. What about south of the Desolation? Going to Kralkatorrik's resting place? Maybe that could be one big map, but Kralkatorrik's going to be a headlining feature here, no? So surely we will go to where he's currently got all of his branded stuff. What about back up in some of the more northern areas? You know, we did get the Crystal Desert in Path of Fire, but you guys realize we didn't get the entire Crystal Desert. The areas of the Thirsty River and a lot of stuff far off in the east we haven't been able to explore. What about more towards Ore and the Scavenger's Causeway and the Orient Land Bridge? If we don't get that area of the world in this X-Pack, what are the odds we'll get it next when we're in the far Shiver Peaks or in the Blood Legion homelands or way down south in Cantha? Does it make sense? Well, probably makes most sense right here with POF. You're only giving me 3 episodes for all of that land? Doesn't sound great. But if we're going to get a Season 4 and a Season 5 still themed around this area, suddenly all of this is fertile ground. Suddenly I have a lot of enthusiasm and excitement that when the devs say, hey, we're doing an expansion in this region of the world, we really get all that stuff I'm enthusiastic about delivered before moving on. I guess there is a fair argument to be made that there is no rush in terms of storytelling and exploration opportunities here. I'm not tired of the various kinds of deserts and bogs and mesas and whatnot they can give us in POF just yet, and I don't think other players should be either. If you are, it just comes down to the quality of their world building and assets rather than the story itself. So, I'm alright with Season 4 and 5 from that perspective, and I think most other people should be. Also, remember what they've been driving home to us, that theoretically, big features don't have to be with expansions. We got the Roller Beetle, a fantastic mount right here with Living Worlds. We seem to be getting some other great looking feature with the Sun's Refuge that could go really far into player housing and whatnot if they push it far enough. Do we really need to wait for expansions to be excited? Then we start moving into other areas of discussion. Maybe you really just don't like the release cadence for Living World. Maybe you as a gamer like to have a big moment where you come in, you dedicate yourself to the game for a couple of months and then leave. A lot of people are like that. And in that case, does it matter how great the features are Living World Season 4 and 5 give us? If it's not all a big flashpoint at once, will it capture people's enthusiasms? Another point of potential excitement in this plan of theirs for me, unexpected as it is the idea that this is buying them time for another expansion, and not necessarily because they don't have enough resources to push it out quick enough, but because they want to go bigger and better next expansion. I've mentioned this perspective many times over the years, but in a lot of ways I think, hey, if they want to spend ages on, for example, a Canthan expansion, let them spend ages. If it's because the Kaineng city is supposed to look completely different now and all futuristic and warped and wild and they need a lot of time to fully realize it, fine. If it's because they finally decided that new playable races are on the cards and they do want to give us Tengu, but it's going to take an enormous mountain of work, so let's do a Season 5, fine. If the reasons for this delay, if that's how you take it, are that we get something awesome at the end of the road, I'm game for it, and ever the optimist, I will keep that in mind. But there's another side of this that I think I'm even more interested in, and it's this. Everything I just said could be true, and they're just buying themselves time to get a bigger X-Pack or whatever in the future. They want to linger in these areas of the world more before they go. Here's the big question. Why draw this line in the sand? Why call it Season 5 instead of having one big Season 4? Because I really don't believe the idea of them marketing a Season 5 is going to give them some kind of influx of new players. To most of the population and gaming audiences in general, it's just Living World, no matter what way you cut it. So why? Why is this line being drawn? And the only reasons I can think of are fairly cynical ones. Maybe you guys can offer your own thoughts below, but I think it's possibly because they are looking to reformat how they deliver Living Worlds, because what they're currently doing is not working out. If you remember, Season 1 was a very different format to Season 2, which was a reasonably different format to Season 3, which was a reasonably different format to Season 4. Each time, and you can hear the game director in a recent interview for the 6th anniversary confirming this, they've tried to top themselves. They've tried to deliver something more. And what it's led to is a lot of stuff in Season 4. Truly massive maps they're committing to put in every single release, and that just kind of happened. If you remember the last time they talked about it, they said they were going to try and do a new map each release. Well, now they are. In these big places that have to support all the freedom of movement they infused into the game with mounts, they're adding things like mounts and the Sun's Refuge, big gameplay features at the same time, and it's not necessarily always leading to large amounts of new player retention. As we saw, Episode 3 just came out, was regarded as a bit of a dud. So, they've got a ton of work to do every release for Season 4. There were a lot of things about Corner that weren't perfect. What if they're drawing a line in the sand and saying, okay, we're doing Season 5, because that allows them to shake up the format, because Season 4's format isn't going perfectly, and they want to lighten the load. And I really think that could be it. Now, that's my cynicism. You can take that to another level and suggest, oh, if they're doing this, that means less content for us. That means lower quality content for us. I'm not sure I believe that. I think good design is efficient design, where you can put things out and create meaningful experiences for people without it being a mountain of work to deal with. And it doesn't necessarily have to translate into a worse experience for us as the players, but they probably have a lot of expectation management to do for any shake-up like that. They can't just suddenly throw out a very different style of patch in the next episodes without warning us, and that warning is the title Season 5. Now, they did confirm that they still have 3 teams for Living World, and I'm not sure whether they're looking to change something like that for Season 5. Another side as well is that they're looking to give themselves a break, right? If you say, oh, the season finale is 2 episodes from now for Season 4, we're going on a break now until Season 5. People might buy that, you know, we're going to have a bit of a bigger gap there because, oh, look, there's a new season that's coming. Maybe they won't do that gap, and I would certainly really not enjoy if we had a gap, but I'm wondering if maybe that's what they're going for. If you do listen to the devs themselves, and as cagey as they've been, they do suggest that the next season will answer big questions left unanswered, and that they're going with a new storyline. So maybe it's just as simple as, hey, the next Season 5 stuff is on a totally new story, so we thought we'd label it something different. But somehow I don't think that can be the full picture. And if that is the truth, well, then all the perks I just thought of about how we could get all these cool areas in Alona might not even come to fruition because we're doing a different storyline. Maybe we'll have a season like Season 3 was, where it's flitting all around core areas again. 1 second we're on the Fire Island Chain, the next second we're up near Divinity's Reach, and maybe that's why they want to call it Season 5, because it'll be different in that way. But I don't think it's going to be just flavor and ideas behind the story. I think we're going to see mechanical, functional differences in what we expect from Living World releases once Season 5 is what we're rolling into. And then that leaves us just really with one final question, and that's, when will Season 5 be? A lot of people seem to think it'll be super quick, but I'm not so sure about that. Unless I'm out of the loop, I would still expect at least 2 more releases for this season, and then the Season 5 stuff beyond. So there you go. That's my initial thoughts, just having seen this as it came out. As more information releases, I will keep you guys in the loop, so please do keep your eye out. I'm really curious to see what you all think about both the Sun's Refuge and this topic too. Are we generally positive or negative? I'll be down in the comments, eagerly reading with you guys. Cheers, everyone. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you for the big Herald rework, the other anniversary thing that came out tomorrow. Have a great evening. I'll see you soon.